that we want to help people. We want to make people's lives better, make people's lives easier. I think it's a really good foundation to bring over into this area of law because consumer attorneys maybe they don't think of it the same way. They don't think of it as a work comp case. I think this is someone's,
Mm.
just something someone owns, or just a product. It's just money on the line. It's not these people's lives, but these people spend so much money on these things. So being able to bring this like work comp personal injury mindset to this type of law is gonna really help us, and we're gonna be able to fight a good fight for him.
Welcome to Law Meets Life, presented by Pond Lehocky, where conversations go beyond the courtroom and into the people, experiences, and moments that define who we are. I'm your host, Katie Fry, and today's guest, Pond Lehocky attorney Kaio Carter, is here to talk to us about something that affects most everyone. Kaio, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Excited that you're here to talk to us about something that, again, affects so many people, and that is lemon law. So, Kyle, before we get into lemon law, I'm really interested about your path into law. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California. My father was a lifeguard, and my mother came from Brazil and worked as a nanny. So I grew up kind of around my dad being in public service, and my mom coming from Brazil. Not really around the law a whole lot, or at least around lawyers a whole lot. So kind of had to figure out my own path from there. I went to undergrad studying business, kind of broke into the corporate world, worked for a few of the big studios in LA out of college, more on the business side. After a couple years doing that, I realized I kind of wanted to do something more impactful. I felt like my job didn't really mean a whole lot, so I decided to go to law school. And went to law school at University of California, Irvine, out in Orange County. And there, I kind of discovered a passion for litigation. Went in thinking I was going to maybe do more business transactional work, like I was doing before law school. And I went there, kind of realized I liked arguing. I liked writing motions, developing arguments, kind of working in that area of the law. And from there, like most people at UC Irvine, I decided to start my career on the defense side. They hire you pretty quick on the defense side. So after my first year, you land a job with one of these big defense firms, and they kind of set it up pretty well for you. So it's a good place to start your career. But after working there for almost a year, I realized this just wasn't for me. It's not. I didn't feel like a real deep passion for it. I started to feel kind of how I felt before law school, working at just a big corporate company, and like my job wasn't very meaningful. And on top of that, kind of sometimes I felt like I was kind of not screwing people over more so
Mm.
than helping people. And so yeah, that's kind of what's led me here today. And after kind of spending some time there, I was able to hone my skills in litigation a little bit. I got a lot of exposure to how we operate on the defense, or how the defense operates. And yeah.
I love hearing that the reason why you're here sitting with us today is because you had that feeling that you needed a mission to help
Hmm.
people. That's such a recurring theme with all of our guests so far, is that there is this like deep desire, and sometimes it's indescribable, that you need to be helping people in a certain way. And I just think that's incredible. Is that something that you have always kind of had, that drive? Is it something that you discovered as you were working in these different roles?
I think a little bit, and I think that's something, as I've gotten older, I realize it's you chase these jobs, and then you realize, they really lack purpose, a lot of
Mm.
them. And you think, I come from, you know, my dad was a lifeguard, my mom was a nanny, and I'm like, oh, I need this big corporate job to do well in life. And you get there and you realize, this is not the answer. This feels empty. And yeah, I think yeah, that's kind of what. And then after so many years of doing that, I've realized, I need to shift.
Yeah.
I need to make a change and be more passionate. And it's hard to show up every day and do work that you don't feel, you know, passionate about.
And now you get to do that work.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I also am just so interested because I come from a broadcast journalism and marketing background. I find it so interesting when lawyers tell me I love to argue. Is that something that you've always loved arguing, like ever since you were a kid, or did you develop this?
So I don't think I like arguing a whole lot in my personal life. It's not like when I say argue, I mean more like argue in court, and it feels a little different.
Mm,
And you feel like you have to be a little more. It's more strategic instead of just getting upset. You don't.
yeah.
It's much less emotional. It's more. You keep your cool and you have your plan. You strategize and you kind of like figure out how you're gonna frame arguments and how you're gonna persuade and convince a judge to rule your way. And so I think that's a big misconception, I think,
Hmm.
is, people think like, "Oh, I'll make a great lawyer because I love fighting with people." But I don't think that's how it works. I think you need to, if anything, keep a level head and be able to be persuasive and talk to a judge and convince them that, your position's the correct position and not just get upset at them because I don't think that's gonna get you anywhere.
Yeah. Important perspective.
Yeah.
So, what originally drew you to automotive litigation?
Yeah, I've always kinda been into cars. I think, just kinda automotive litigation was always interesting to me because I think it just kinda touches on everyone's life in some way, and it was like, you could do going into the firm I was at, you could work on stuff that is really so niche that it doesn't really, doesn't affect your daily life or it doesn't, it's hard to relate to, where I think automotive work is, everyone has a car,
Yeah.
especially in Southern California. So I think it's just such a big piece of everyone's life, and you know, it's the second biggest investment you make in life, other than your house. So um, it's something that you expect to keep you safe. You expect it to be reliable. Um, you expect to enjoy it, and so it's kind of a letdown when those when you spend so much money on something it doesn't live up to those expectations, especially safety. You
Absolutely.
want to get in your car and feel safe. It's dangerous driving a car, and it's important that that car keeps you safe, and we have standards for that, and they're not always met. So yeah,
That's why we have you.
exactly.
Hmm. Now, you spent time representing manufacturers. I'm curious about what that experience taught you about this industry in particular.
So it kind of just opened me up in general to just how many cars are problematic. There's so many lemon lawsuits being filed in California. And I think that's because California has a law that helps protect consumers better than other states. And and I think there's something to be said about, that manufacturers are starting to cut corners and make cars cheaper. And that's not reflected in the price. The prices have gone up, but and you could really see it because there's big differences between the manufacturers. Some don't have as many lemons as others, and there's big gaps, really big gaps. I mean, um, there's manufacturers making 10 times as many lemons as other manufacturers for every vehicle
Wow.
they're producing. So it just shows, it's manufacturers cut corners to make more money, and the consumer ends up also paying more for the car and then getting a car that doesn't work. So
So, we've talked about how you've kind of made this switch from the dark side to now working for the greater good. I'm curious about what made Pond Lehocky the right fit for this next chapter for you.
I think Pond Lehocky, being built around workers' compensation and just having that mentality, having people like Sam, having people like Jerry, kind of guiding the firm, just it, they're a firm that wants to help people, and I think being able to bring that to consumers in California is just such a such a great opportunity. Because I don't know if everyone thinks that way, and in this type of work in California, and just having that background, that we want to help people, we want to make people's lives better, make people's lives easier. I think it's a really good foundation to bring over into this area of law. Because consumer attorneys, maybe they don't think of it the same way. They don't think of it as a work comp case. They think this is someone's, just
Mm,
something someone owns, or just a product. You know, it's just money on the line. It's not these people's lives, but these
right.
people spend so much money on these things. So I think being able to bring this like work comp, personal injury mindset to this type of law is gonna really help us, and we're gonna be able to fight a good fight for him.
So before we sat down together, you and I talked a little bit about how you grew up on the West Coast. You've never been to New York City, and this is really just the first time that you're spending time in Philadelphia. So I want to learn more about your perspective about the differences between West Coast, East Coast culture, and really how that bleeds into the law.
Yeah, I think you guys are a little more intense on the East Coast. I think we in California,
I
you're a
hope we're
little
not
like,
scaring you.
no. My mom's from Brazil, so I
Oh,
I I make this joke. I think on the East Coast, everyone kind of talks really loud,
yeah,
and my mom's the loudest talker there is. So
perfect.
I'm like, I think I fit right in
You were born for
sometimes.
this, yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's definitely a little more intensity over here. I think we're just as fired up, but maybe we don't show it in the same way.
Mm.
Everyone's a little bit more calm and collected, where over here, they wear their emotions on their sleeves, which I think is awesome. I think it's fun.
Especially in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And with our sports culture too. You're here during a very interesting time. FIFA World Cup is here. I just heard you're going to get to go to a game where Brazil is playing, which is going to be extremely exciting.
Yep.
Um, so hopefully you can report back to us. Let us know how the game went,
Super excited for that.
and hopefully you get a win. Who are they playing?
They're playing Haiti, so
It's very cool.
yeah.
I actually traveled to Brazil twice. I was there in, I want to say it was like fifth grade for me
Oh,
over
nice.
Christmas time. And we went to, I don't know if it was a World Cup stadium. I have to check my pictures.
Yeah,
But I remember walking in there, and the second we walked into the stadium and onto the field, there was a soccer player there. And everyone was telling us, like, that's a famous player. And me being like a fifth grader, I was like, okay, great. Like,
yeah,
when are we going to Iguazu?
yeah.
Like, so I'm curious about what has been the biggest surprise for you about joining a firm whose entire mission is centered around helping people every single day.
And I don't know if I've been surprised, but it's just been nice to see. I mean, you come from a big defense firm and you build, an absurd amount of hours every year. And it's like they're known as just these people don't stop working. That hasn't changed though over here. I come in here, these people are, if anything, working more because they're so fired up. I
Mm.
think they're excited, and there's a different energy, and it's actually been great to see. It's like I feel energized. I mean, being around everyone, and I think yeah, it's like you just feel a different presence with everyone, and how they kind of want to wake up every morning early and get after it. And and yeah, it's been I think on the defense side, you kind of you talk a lot of you say a lot of bad things about people on the plaintiff side, and these people don't do anything. They're lazy. They're whatever, and that is not at all true. That's if anything, it's the opposite.
Mm.
So yeah, that's been not quite a surprise, but something that I didn't see till I switched sides, and now I see these people are really getting after it. So
Wow.
yeah.
We'll be back with more Law Meets Life after a quick message from our sponsor.
Up! Do my eyes play games?
What do you see, Captain? Is it the Redcoats?
No, it's another Pond Lehocky billboard. Who here's been injured at work?
We have, sir. It's our fingers, sir. Oh, they ache.
Well then, you know who to call. To the front, march!
These things are everywhere.
I'm back now with Pond Lehocky attorney Kaio Carter. So, now transitioning a little bit more into lemon law. I have a lot of questions for you about lemon law because I know prior to learning about how we're going into this new area of business, this was something completely new to me. May also be because I have a 2004 Hyundai passed down to me from my grandmother. But I'm curious from you, if someone hears the phrase lemon law, what does that actually mean?
Means you have a vehicle that was that is impaired in a way that affects the value, use, or safety. And It means you purchased your vehicle, and now issues have come up that are impeding that use or that value or that safety. And so that's really what the law is, and it covers a wide breadth because you paid a lot of money for that car, and you want to make sure that works properly.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about lemon law claims?
I think people think um, I think they think the car needs to explode sometimes before they have a claim, and that would be you really don't want to get to that point. Um, so I think people maybe wait too long and think, oh, my car's fine. I brought it in for repair. It was covered by warranty. It's okay if I have to bring my car in, every few months. And that's not what the law says, and that's not, that shouldn't be the case. That's a lot of time out of your day. You have a car, who knows if now it's had to be repaired so many times in the warranty period. After the warranty period's done, you don't now you're outside of your window for your claim, and you have a car that doesn't work. So I think people think, you need to, like I said, have a car that's about to explode before you have a claim, but that's not what the law says. You have a claim when you've brought your vehicle in multiple times for the same issue. You purchase the vehicle with a new vehicle warranty, um, and that's when you should start looking into taking action on it.
So it doesn't have to be after your car has gone through like 5 hours of playing GTA. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
the second something comes up and then it recurs.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Recurring issues. That's
Mhm.
that's going to be your red flag. Because when if there's an issue and it hasn't been able to be repaired, that's a red flag. There's something going on. So
Absolutely. Do you have to buy a brand new vehicle to qualify?
you need a vehicle with a new vehicle warranty. So there are situations where a car could be sold used with a new vehicle warranty, so like a certified pre-owned vehicle, and those are sometimes viable cases.
Gotcha. And how old can a vehicle be and still potentially qualify?
Generally, you want the vehicle to be purchased or delivered to you within the last 6 years to have a viable claim.
When we first started talking about lemon law, we talked about how it covers a breadth of different defects. So I'm curious, what type of defects in particular are we talking about? Is it just engine and transmission issues, or can other problems qualify too?
So it's anything that's going to affect the use, value, or safety of the car. And that's broad. That there's a lot of things that could affect those. I mean, your infotainment system not working, that could affect the safety. You're backing up, and now you're using your camera, and all of a sudden it goes black. And then you could have people behind you don't see. There's a lot of issues that could cause. So um, there's a wider breadth than just engine and transmission, and that's maybe a misconception people have. Like I said, they need their engine to explode. That's not true. They need just issues with the vehicle that affect the use, value, or safety.
So I want to transition into helping people know if they have a case or not. I know we've covered that large breadth of different qualifiers, but I'm curious about what's usually the first sign that someone should start paying closer attention to what's happening with their vehicle.
So I think anytime you have a repair on a major part of your vehicle, like your engine or transmission, even if it's just once, that should be a red flag. You should start to consider, something might be wrong with my vehicle. If you've had that same issue twice or any issue twice, really, then you also should really be considering something might be wrong with my vehicle. Um, And if you have anything at all that affects the safety of the vehicle, that's really going to be a big red flag. You don't want to be driving around in a car that's not safe. And so I think if you have airbag issues, you have lights that are constantly coming on that just seem, like you can't figure out what's going on. You've brought your car in for repair. They don't really know what's going on. That's going to be an issue. So,
That's more of a stop sign then at that point.
exactly. Yeah.
What documentation should people be keeping from day one?
They should be keeping their repair orders from the dealership. Um, they should be keeping their retail installment sales contract, so the initial purchase contract for the vehicle. They should be keeping their payment history, any documentations relating to communications with the dealership or with the manufacturer of the vehicle, um, and that's about it. Yeah, those documents are going to be really important to be keeping.
What do you believe is the biggest mistake consumers make when dealing with repeated vehicle problems?
Not giving us a call. I think maybe just thinking, I'll just keep bringing my car in for repair, and they're going to fix this problem, and they're really not. The car, something's wrong with the car. And a dealership could only do so much to repair it when the car's built faulty. So
When a claim comes in, what makes a manufacturer nervous?
I think they're gonna get nervous um, when they see our name on it. They're gonna get nervous when they they know their cars have problems. Those manufacturers that are producing lemons at mass. They're gonna get nervous when they're seeing this this model, this make model, filing a lemon lawsuit. They know they're not going to win that one. They know the issues they have. They know the issues that are repetitive, and uh, and I think that's going to scare them.
Do you think people are worried about bringing their cars in repetitively because of that built up cost without maybe thinking towards the future of having a lemon and maybe even getting more money than it even costs them to make those repairs?
I think that could definitely be an issue. Most of these, you'd hope that a lot of these repairs are going to be done under warranty. And if they're not done under warranty, then we have an even stronger argument to make that these consumers are paying a lot of money out of pocket for these repairs, and this car is not living up to the standards that they should be.
So, a few more questions about manufacturers because I think that your perspective is so valuable when it comes to lemon law in California. What do manufacturers wish consumers didn't know?
I think manufacturers don't want consumers to know how many issues a lot of their cars have. Um, they don't want consumers to know that they're making cars that now have more issues than they did in the past. They don't want consumers to know their rights in lemon law. They don't want them to know that you do have viable claims in California where maybe in other states you wouldn't have because the law in California has been set up to really help consumers and protect them. Um, and also, for these manufacturers, California is one of their biggest markets. So if they want to, hide hide a lot of those consumer protections from Californians, that's not really fair because they're making so much money off everyone in California. So I think um, it's really important that consumers in California know their rights. They pay a lot of money, you pay a lot of taxes, you pay a lot to live in the state, and and there's a lot of benefits to it as well, and the law is one of them.
All right, Kaio, I want to give you a few real life situations and I want you to tell me whether you're paying attention or not. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, Kaio, my transmission has failed twice in 6 months. You paying attention?
Yes, absolutely.
You think we have a
That
case?
absolutely.
What if my touch screen freezes every week?
Definitely an issue. That's a repetitive issue. If you brought it in and it's continuing to happen, I think you have a case.
My vehicle has spent 40 days in the shop.
You absolutely have a case. That is not something that anyone should have to go through, and that is covered by the law.
Long amount of time. My brakes keep making noise, but the dealership says everything is normal.
If the brakes are making noises, that could be a sign that there's an issue. But if that's just, new brake pads and it does go away, then maybe it is just, new brake pads. But that's something you should be keeping track of.
So you're keeping an eye on it.
Keep an eye on that
Yeah.
one.
My check engine light keeps coming back after multiple repairs.
There's absolutely an issue there. That's something that you should be keeping track of, and I'm paying attention to that.
Awesome. So, why do you think so many consumers just accept these situations instead of exploring their rights?
I think maybe they're scared that they don't have a claim yet. They think, the threshold hasn't been met for their car to be a true lemon. I think they think it's going to be maybe a lot of time and effort on their end, and they're going to have to um, spend, a lot of time trying to litigate this case, but at the end of the day, a lot of these could get resolved quickly. Um, and you're spending just as much time at the dealership,
Right.
if so more, if anything more time at the dealership. So it's I think people are hesitant to take action on these things, but the reality is these could get resolved quickly, especially when you have a strong case.
Have you seen people spend months or even years dealing with a problem vehicle when they could have taken action much sooner?
Yes, I think people, they go beyond what they need to with building their case, and sometimes, and they will, keep bringing their car in for fourth time, fifth time for the same issue, and they could have brought their car in sooner because there's clearly a defect that's affecting the use value or safety of the car.
Who should be calling you after hearing today's episode?
I think anyone who bought their car in California, purchased it with a new vehicle warranty, and has brought their car in for repair more than once for the same issue, or has spent a lot of time with at the dealership for repair. Anyone who thinks there's a defect with their car that's affecting its use value or safety, and anyone with those issues should definitely be giving us a call.
If someone listening isn't sure whether they have a case, what's the first thing they should do?
They should give us a call. Yeah. If they don't, if they're unsure, then I think it's more likely than not that they have a case, and they should give us a call.
Now, we've talked a lot about lemon law, we talked a little bit about your background, but I am curious about you. When you're not practicing law, what do you enjoy doing?
So I grew up surfing. I love surfing. Grew up by the beach. My dad's a lifeguard, so that's 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 my favorite hobby. What I spend most of my free time doing. I have a beautiful wife and a son, and expecting another son. So
Oh,
this August, yeah.
congratulations. Oh
So
my gosh, so soon.
yep, coming up very soon.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
yeah, those are between surf being a lawyer and having a family. You don't get to surf as much as I did when I was younger, but still my favorite thing to do after spending time with my family.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
That's incredible. Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Sam had a big influence. I knew Dylan before law school, and I came out and visited them out in Jersey, and they, that was I met Sam the summer before I started law school. And
Wow.
I kind of, I had known Dylan for a few years, and then I've known them since, and I think just seeing what they do here has been definitely a big influence, and that's why I'm here now. So
What's a piece of advice that's stuck with you throughout your life?
to not be afraid to just kind of try things. Um, I think, having the background it, I do have, growing up with a dad who's a lifeguard and a mom who was a nanny and came from Brazil, just like I didn't have, I feel like I didn't have any boundaries set the way I looked at it. It's kind of the reverse of what you'd think, but I think just growing up like that, I was like, once I already broke into, working in the corporate world, I'm like, I've already done so much. I've already taken such a different path than what I saw growing up that I think just trying, trying whatever I want to try and going for it and not being afraid to kind of just take action, I think is the big thing for me. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest learning curve for you going from, because I can relate. My mom was an elementary school teacher, my dad was an engineer. None of my family was in corporate. And so I felt like I was learning a whole new language when I
Hmm.
first joined corporate. I didn't know what EOD meant. I didn't
Yeah.
know what looping somebody back in meant. So, what has been the biggest learning curve for you
I
entering that corporate world?
I think you go into the corporate world and they try and build all these bad habits. I think that's why I've kind of tried
Mm.
to get away from it. It's they want you to not try new things. They want you to just kind of fit in their model. And I think, you know, that's not a good way. That's not a good way to live. That's not a good way to practice law. That's not a good way to just contribute to the world. Is just by fitting their business model and what they want to do. And I think it's important to they try and force you into this, like, way of working and thinking, and I think in the long run, it's probably bad for lawyers, and that's kinda why I have made this jump, and I see people like Sam and Jerry, and I think they're not afraid to try things. They're not afraid to go for it. They're not afraid to make the fight, and, so I think, I don't know if that's a learning curve, but I think that's something that, I I I saw in that world, and I wanted to get away from it.
So, Kaio, if a friend called you and asked what kind of lawyer you are, what would you hope they'd say about you?
I hope they'd say I'm someone who fights for his clients. Someone who's not afraid to go for it and make the arguments that need to be made. Who's gonna work day in day out. Fighting for their rights, fighting for their clients, and trying to help them make their life easier, make their life better, and fix whatever wrong has been kind of done to them.
Kind of similar question. What's one thing you want every client to feel after working with you?
I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel protected. I want them to feel um, as if you know they they got the best representation that they possibly could have. That they couldn't have gone anywhere better.
So, Kaio, before we end our time together today, I would like to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
All right. Most overrated car feature.
I think yeah, maybe backup cameras. They cause a lot of issues. They'd be great if they worked all the time, but maybe a little bit. The manufacturers need to put a little more effort into those. Yeah.
Now, opposite of that, most underrated car feature.
Underrated. Probably the airbags or the airbags or the collision warning systems. Those
Mm.
are this is a great feature that's been added into cars, and I hope they keep getting better. But issues still come up with them, and but I think they're an important feature in a modern car.
What's your dream car?
Dream car. I drive it already. It's a Toyota Tundra. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Nice.
Dream car.
I love that. Worst car you've ever owned.
Worst car I ever owned was a, Ford Explorer, also known as the, Ford Exploder. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm afraid to ask more questions about that. Best road trip destination.
Probably driving through Big Sur up to San Francisco from LA. That's gonna be a hard one to beat.
That's on my bucket
Yeah,
list.
that's a tough one to beat.
I saw the redwoods for the first time last year.
Yeah,
Unreal.
pretty beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Manual or automatic?
I like manual cars. I, I've driven them growing up, driven them around Europe. I like them. I think they're more reliable. There's now I think more issues with transmissions because of the automatic transmissions. So I'm gonna go with manual on that one.
Most reliable manufacturer.
It's gonna be Toyota.
That's what my dad says.
It's Toyota.
One thing everyone should know before buying a car.
Everyone should know that when you buy a new car, you in California, you're protected by the lemon law. That's you pay a premium for that new car, and when you buy that, you should be well aware that if something's wrong with it, you can file a lawsuit.
Kyle, we talked a lot today about cars and trucks. What about motorcycles, RVs, and boats?
Those are also covered by the Song-Beverly Act. Those are those are if you have issues with those items, then you definitely should give us a call.
Now, what if I'm injured from a lemon?
Then you possibly have a product liability case, and you also want to give us a call. That is that's a major issue that you need to contact a lawyer for.
Now, Kyle, last question that I have for you today. What does law meets life mean to you?
I think this is a great way to get to know us as lawyers and us as people, and get to teach people about the kind of rights they have and what kind of actions they can take to protect themselves and to right you know the wrongs that maybe they've faced.
Kyle, thank you so much for being here today, taking time out of your day to sit down with us and teach us more about lemon laws.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to Law Meets Life, from legal strategy to lived experience. Until next time.